Kara Oosterhuis here with RealAgriculture.com. I am here today at the No-Till Conference, the National No-Till Conference in St. Louis, Missouri, and I have here with me Jim Stute, who is an independent research agronomist. How's it going today?
Good, how are you?
Good. So tell me a bit about what your presentation is here today.
So we were looking at the ability of a cereal rye cover crop planted prior to soybean, its ability to suppress weeds, and in particular our problematic glyphosate-resistant or tolerant weeds. So waterhemp, giant ragweed, and mare's tail.
So what are some of your findings so far? What have you discovered? What has the data showed you?
So in a nutshell, the real promising weed suppression, so across the species, and I should say what we're really looking at is not only the rye, but rye management. So we're looking at two different seeding rates and also a termination timing. And the underlying assumption is that the rye biomass, the above ground plant material, is what's responsible for the weed suppression. So we're looking at those factors, and our results are really promising. If we terminate the rye late, what we call planting green, so the beans are planted, they're already up, we wait until the rye pollinates, we're seeing across species 90 to 95% suppression, which is huge from a weed competition standpoint, but it's even bigger when you think about resistance management. So the whole reason and rationale for doing this work is we have resistance to glyphosate in these species. We need to protect the next generation of chemicals that we're using to control these weeds. We got fewer weeds. If we can cut the number of applications, it's a recipe for resistance management because we have fewer individuals that can become resistant. So that's huge to me. The other really good news with this, the bad news with that system is we are seeing real reduction. The good news is even if we terminate right at planting, we're seeing a 50% reduction in populations and a slight yield bump, 2 to 3% in the soybeans. So that's huge also. And we're getting the weed suppression benefit. And if we can reduce the number of post-emergence applications, also resistance management. It's huge.
Absolutely. So you talked a bit about some of your, that the data showed certain things, but observations showed different things. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we have a standard protocol, which is as standard as you can get working with a group of farmers. You got to have flexibility. But the really interesting observations weren't from our data is not from our data collection, but it's from observation. So the first one is we drive the populations of these weeds down to almost nothing with the late termination. Functionally, what that does is it shifts the emergence of those weed populations to later in the season, but when we can still apply the herbicide. That means we can maybe get away with one post-emergence application. That's a cost savings to the farmer, but also back to resistance management. Fewer individuals, less chemical, resistance management. So that's one of the things. We weren't looking at grasses at all in this study, but we found that in any treatment that had rye in it, we suppressed late emerging grasses like crabgrass and witchgrass, which I don't see on my farm, so I'm not looking for it, but my cooperators, they got the problem. And they're like, hey, Jim, look at this plot. We're seeing the suppression. So that's huge.
So talk about how the cooperators kind of fit into your whole research and why they're important to your research.
So they're important in a couple of contexts. I need more sites because weed populations are different on different farms. So we got more sites, so we get more data, and that gives us statistical power to see what's really going on. But the cooperators are key for doing the work, getting the plots out there, and then they're especially key in the in-season observation. So like the grass showing up later in the season. I wouldn't have caught that, but they caught it because they're out there looking at the plots. They're also huge in outreach. You think of farmers, some are really vocal, some aren't. They start talking about work that's on their farm. Even the shy ones, they will let her rip. They will let you know what's going on. And then just designing the trial to make sure that I, as the research, even though I'm a farmer, I still lean heavily towards the researcher. I want to ask a certain set of questions. They may not be real world, so they ground me and make sure that we, in our research, are addressing real world issues faced by real world farmers.
Any surprises you found in the research?
Yeah, the degree of suppression, that was huge. So I never thought we'd see 99% suppression. So that was huge. The yield reduction, I kind of had a feeling it was there, This is with the late termination. It's there a lot more than what I thought. What we really do need, and this is not a request for more research funding, although that would be nice. In our work, we had a declared drought, and we had a year with last year, 2022, with a 2.5 month period of basically no rainfall. What I would really like is average year where we have average rainfall, and I'd like to see what that yield reduction is. So the magnitude of the reduction, that was a surprise. I don't think year in and year out that's going to be the case.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.